The H6 espionage case weaves together the intriguing elements of secrecy, politics, the vulnerability of elite institutions in a way that feels almost cinematic, certainly theatrical. And at the centre of it all is this spy, dubbed H6 after the place where after Hampton Court, where apparently he lived next to Hampton Court. He lived near Hampton. And his links with figures like Prince Andrew, David Cameron, Theresa May underscore concerns about this elite capture strategy. And this isn't just about one man's alleged covert activities, but the broader question of how deeply the tentacles of foreign influence have penetrated British political and social institutions and how exposed we are. H6, with his apparent charm and access to high-ranking individuals, epitomises the subtlety of soft power tactics. And indeed, we do the same thing, don't we? Or at least we purport to do the same thing, at least in fiction with James Bond. Isn't that exactly what we're promoting? His relationship with Prince Andrew, which included business dealings and even attendance at a birthday party, raises serious questions about the judgment of the people in positions of influence and their susceptibility to manipulation, particularly when things go wrong and they need a shoulder to cry on. The decision by Suella Braverman to ban H6 from the UK on national security grounds was upheld by a tribunal, highlighting the gravity of the allegations, yet the persistent anonymity order protecting his identity hasn't worked. His identity is all over the internet. And it's provoked anger, with Nigel Farage threatening to use parliamentary privilege to name him, and Ian Duncan Smith demanding transparency. Farage is in this for himself. Of course, the spectacle of who will out H6 first is its own political theatre, and Farage has already staked the claim. I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. But I think, frankly, there's no point. We all know who it is. It's an absurd game of brinkmanship that risks trivialising the seriousness of the problem. Farage's bluster about naming H6 in the national interest might resonate with the audience of GB News, but it does little to address the structural vulnerabilities that allowed this situation to arise in the first place. Flag it up, and it's fairly worthless. This is about who will out the man first, and it's a tiresome game. Indeed, the secrecy, when you wield secrecy as a threat rather than a tool for meaningful reform, all it does is perpetuate the culture of opacity. The images of H6 with Cameron and May, carefully staged on his desk, serve as potent symbols of his reach, of his power. And though their significance is murky, both former Prime Ministers claim no memory of these meetings, but we know that David Cameron and Theresa May have a rather selective memory anyway. Their mere existence demonstrates how easily access can be construed as endorsement. And that's precisely the issue of elite capture. It thrives on the perception of legitimacy conferred by proximity to power. And Prince Andrew's role, too, is emblematic of broader institutional failure. His reliance on H6 during a vulnerable period. Well, Andrew has certainly had vulnerable periods. This isn't to exonerate Andrew. It's to say that the constant probing and pushing at Andrew, who does he seek advice from? Either you act decisively, or you perpetuate the chaos. The Duke's statement that nothing of a sensitive nature was ever discussed offers little reassurance, when the fact that he is there, the fact that H6 is there, already exposes Andrew to potential compromise, and exposes the government and the royal family to potential compromise. This case is about the recurring tension between the UK and not only China but other powers. As the Home Secretary, Yvette Cooper, has said, the relationship is a complex arrangement balancing economic collaboration with national security. But we seem to have forgotten that we have two hands. That it's perfectly possible to do two things at the same time. To criticise and to reach out in friendship. And to criticise firmly and to reach out firmly in friendship. We should be reaching out to Russia at the moment. Perhaps not to Putin. But we should be actively reaching out to the Russian people. And we're not. We're not. Somehow we have all these tools of communication available, and they simply aren't working. I don't understand this obsession with consistency. Consistency is about me. It's about it's about impulse. It's not about effect. And I'm afraid it's consistency with Farage. It's not about H6 or national security. It's about Farage. How important it is that he's got the front page of the newspapers tomorrow. As he, even if he were to announce who this person is, and we all know, it's his proclamation that he's going to announce it, which will capture the headlines. He knows that. The time has run out. And the public discussion surrounding H6 underscores a larger issue. The UK's political establishment is more reactive than proactive in addressing foreign interference. As Ian Duncan Smith has warned, this is like some madness on steroids. And it seems to be the default position when economic desperation meets security. And ultimately, the H6 saga is less about one man and more about the weaknesses of the system it exposes. If Reform UK or MPs genuinely believe naming him will make a difference, they must also advocate for robust measures to prevent future breaches. They must advocate for reaching out to other countries and doing exactly the sort of operating exactly the same sort of overtures that H6 was operating in. Naming and shaming alone is insufficient and pointless. Secrecy wielded as a threat without decisive action is as hollow as it is performative. And secrecy as a threat, this isn't the secrecy of H6, this is the secrecy of our own state. This is the absurdity of this nonsense. And it really is nonsense. The man whose sobriquet is linked to Hampton Court. What is the point of Farage naming this man when the information is readily accessible on the internet? The patterner of secrecy that is routinely wielded as a threat in Britain is as absurd as the arrogance of Reform when it says it will use parliamentary privilege to name this man. If they want to do something, do it! Flag it up! But it's fairly worthless. This is now about who will name the man first, and it's a tiresome game, and it does nobody any credit at all.